Hey y'all, what's up? This is Chris from Blackstone Cherry, and you're watching the Helix Hour with Eric Broadbent.
Hey, this is Vernon Reed from Living Color, and you're watching the Helix Hour.
Hey guys, my name is Gemma Jura. I'm the guitar player for Evanescence, and you're watching the Helix Hour.
Welcome to the Helix Hour, brought to you in part by Stewart Travel Guitars. See the incredible stowaway travel guitar at stewartguitars.com. Microphones for the Helix Hour are provided by Rode Microphones. Now, let's talk some Helix. Hey everyone, happy stay-at-home Sunday to you all. Welcome to the Helix Hour. We are live. We had a bit of a panic moment there just a moment ago. We were losing some bandwidth, so we had to have our dear son take one for the team and jump off the internet. But hopefully everybody is well, and we're glad to see you here. We have a favorite recurring guest here on the show, Mr. Billy Sheehan from bands. I mean, countless bands, from Sons of Apollo, from David Lee Roth, from the Winery Dogs, Talus. I mean, you name it. It's great to have you back. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thanks very much. I'm very lucky to have and grateful to have a nice home to be stuck in.
That's great. And I'm going to bring this up later on in the show as well too. But I felt so bad as the man of the house, or actually my son's pretty much almost ready to be the man of the house as well too. I saw your chore list you did yesterday, and I mean, holy cow! I mean, you know, four major things: going out for a walk, chopping down some vines. I mean, chopping lumber, wood for obviously for fire, all that kind of stuff. And I did the dishes yesterday. So thanks for putting me in the doghouse.
Yeah, I'm going to knock it off. Me and my big mouth, I'm getting everybody in trouble. Everybody's wives are saying, how come you're not doing it? But, you know, it's a funny thing during this. For the first couple of days, it took me a while to get motivated to do anything.
Right.
It's really kind of soul crushing to see everything happen the way it's happening, you know, and it's sad to say, but so maybe you can use that as an excuse.
Yeah. Well, I had that day yesterday. That was my only day yesterday. Like for the first time actually since this has happened, I was kind of moping around the house. Then again too, I mean, it was gloomy, rainy and gloomy, and that kind of adds a little bit of a joy kill to your spirit too, you know.
Exactly. We had really horrible weather in Nashville for about 2 straight weeks. Now it's absolutely glorious. Everything's turning green. The flowers are blooming. So that helps.
Yeah, for sure. And you had about 70 degrees, you were telling me yesterday.
Yeah, it was warm yesterday, a little overcast, but today it's just beautiful. We had a little thunderstorm last night, and so that kind of cleaned everything off. And the air there's so much oxygen. I tell people I go outside, I get dizzy.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's a good thing, right? I mean, we're kind of resetting the earth a little bit. I saw some photos of Los Angeles there, you know, and you're not seeing any smog for the first time. And I'm sure over in Nashville, I mean, there's a lot of traffic normally as well, hustle and bustle. And it's just nice to get some fresh air for a while.
Absolutely. Well, I'm very grateful, very lucky. We have about an acre of woods behind our house. It's a residential area. It's not farm area, but we have I'll just step out there.
Mm-hmm.
Have just a really nice spot out here. The woods behind me there off the deck.
Beautiful.
You can see got a little trail out into the woods, and the trees are blooming. We get all kinds of wildlife coming in here, and so I'm not exactly isolated, and it's not a bad place to be quarantined. So
no, not at all.
I'm very thankful for that.
I guess so. Beautiful for sure. And we live in a small community as well too. We don't necessarily have the wilderness that you have, but we are surrounded by, you know, a couple 100-year-old trees, and sometimes it's scary because with the wind we have right now. That's a scary thing because it could come down, and you don't want to be in the path of that. But nice to see. Well, we've got a bunch of people over in the chat. We'll say hi to them very, very quickly. A whole bunch of people. Mark Taylor is here. Mickey Settlemeyer. Antonello Pudva is here. Derek Merrill is here. Paolo is here. Mark Taylor. Scott Roos. John Willis, your buddy, as we talked about earlier.
Hey, John.
Bob Ayan is here. David B.B. Benningfield. Mickey Settlemeyer. Six String Brian, my good friend Brian Cote, who you met with me and Junior at NAMM. Yeah, bass player himself and guitar player. Great bass player. Let me see here. Continuing on, he was very happy to meet you, and it was very excited. Kai Down is here. Ladybug is here. My beautiful butterfly ladybug. That's Sandra Lee. So let me see. Brad Miller, Colin Martinell's here. Holy cow, lots of people jumping in. Gary Tholander is here. Frank Rashad from Line 6 here, one of our friends as well. Guitar Hack, Carlos Santon, John Willis. I mentioned John. Bucket Full of Balls is here. I love that name. If you're going to have some balls, you got to have a bucket full of them. Andrew Bonica former Line 6. He's with us as well, too. Nick Rush from South Africa is here, another Line 6 and a Yamaha artist. Mark Taylor, Boy Thrash Metal and Fun Risk, Chris Link. We're going through them. We're getting there. Edwin Crane, Will Dunham, Chuck Booth. We got a full house. I'm going to...
Excellent.
The Great Vancini, Fruitcake Tony. We'll say Matthew Ferguson. I know you know Matt. Matt from Line 6,
absolutely.
Yamaha.
Hi, Matt.
It's good to see you, buddy. Jimmy Biter, AZDCH. I can't say the name. I know you're regular here. Thank you so much. Eric Arco's here. Manuel Mallard is here. John Willis. Okay, Paul Terrio is here. Okay, I'm down to the very bottom. Gary Sheehan is here as well, too. So just before we jump over into the meat and potatoes of the program today, first of all, we're thrilled to have Billy back again. It's great. A few things. I want to share this, which is probably the most important thing, and I know Billy will agree with me here, is utmost respect to the men and women in the medical profession, doctors, nurses, volunteers, everybody, first responders who are out there fighting the good fight for us and taking care of those, keeping us safe and also taking care of those who are not as safe. So thank you for that. For those of you that like to ask, exactly. For those who want to ask Billy a question, tag Music Gear Network in the chat or Butterfly and Ladybug Show. And for those of you that want to support the show, you can use our super chats or you can also use our PayPal link on the screen. So watching again that post yesterday, you've been pretty busy. So life really, it's probably a little nicer for you to kind of take some time and enjoy life a little bit, even though it's kind of forced upon you. I'm sure you're enjoying the kind of the self-isolation.
Yeah, very much. There's always a lot to do. And I'm in the middle of, or beginning, about 3 or 4 records, actually. So
nice.
I have very close to me here where I live is Ray Lugier, the drummer from Korn. And
Love
Ray
him.
and I have worked together a lot. We have a couple of different projects we're working on. So that's my only actual social contact. And we make sure to bump elbows rather than shake hands when we greet.
That's good. That's good.
We're being very careful. He's got kids too, so I would be very careful about
sure.
stuff like that. So the last week or so, we haven't actually physically been together much, but we're just back and forth via messaging and all. But we're doing a record that's just going to be wacky bass and drums, maniacal craziness. Then a few other records we're involved with as well. So that's on the musical end, creative wise. There's that and a few more things, and then gear. That's why I'm here. I've been a gearhead since I started. So it's a good opportunity to start plugging some things in and checking some things out and experimenting around. Right now, I'll show you later, down in my garage, I got a little setup, low volume, but it's my basic stage setup also to give me an idea of what it's going to sound like when I get up on deck with it for real. That's a big revelation to a lot of people, as I'm sure most everyone watching this knows, that you sit down in a quiet room, get these amazing tones, then you get on stage and turn it up, and what happened?
Exactly.
Well, as John very brilliantly pointed out, it's the Fletcher-Munson curve, which is at different volumes, it's gonna the whole EQ is gonna change. So knowing that now, I had kind of inadvertently known it in the past, and had somehow worked around it without actually knowing what I was doing. I was just, apparently my ears were sensing what they should have sensed. And so that's why a lot of people, they see my setup, they see a lot of mid-range. They go, wow, you got so much mid-range. Yeah, when you turn it up, it turns flat. And that's why. So it's been I've been very conscious of that. So I'll show you my setup down there. I've been doing a little A-Bing and comparison to a couple things. And it's been very interesting. Plus, it's a way for me to sit down and really, sometimes all of us as players, sometimes you just don't feel like playing, you know? And,
sure.
Sometimes you just got to force it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you just say, you know what, pick it up and run exercises for half an hour. Then you almost every time after you do that, it starts to open up, and then you do feel like playing, and then you get an idea. Then I click on the selfie video on my iPhone and record it, and go from there. So sometimes it takes some relentless self-discipline sometimes to really get up to speed. But when you do, it's worth it. And so I do that a lot here, especially during these times when there's not much else to do.
Exactly. Good advice for sure. And that's the thing, even like yesterday when I was saying too, I was a little down on the rut with the weather, and I did pick up the guitar for a minute and it didn't feel 100% fresh, but when you put it back, that's a good thing. Just put it back, come back to another time, and it'll speak to you when the next time you pick it up.
Exactly. Yeah. And I see nothing wrong with forcing it, you know, just I've even heard it say to a much different aspect. Force yourself to smile, and you'll soon have something to smile about. Well, force yourself to play, and you'll be actually playing. I think that's a little corollary and parallel to that.
No, that's good advice. That's a good advice for sure. Those of us, down in the dumps, okay, like you're doing a family photo or something, you're kind of bummed out. It's smile. And I mean, it opens up the muscles, you're using your face muscles, using your hand muscles for the instrument. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I want to say something right off the get-go as well, too. I think it was almost, if I'm correct, about 10 days from today, or 10 days ago, you celebrated not only a birthday, but an anniversary.
Yeah. I got married on my birthday, so I'd never forget my anniversary.
That's perfect.
And that way I would never get in trouble.
That's good. And on top of that, that's a nice birthday gift every year too, isn't it?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, my wife is just a gift to me. She's amazing, and she's not here right now, but I'd have her say hello, but she's just fantastic. So we have a wonderful situation together. We're very, very thankful.
That's great. Well, congratulations to the both of you, and happy belated birthday. I'm sure that will echo in the chat here as well. So
thank you.
You guys look really happy together. I mean, it was just passion. I love it. Here's the first question from the audience. Paolo says, "Hey Billy, wife is from Milan, city within the Italian red area. Can I ask if Billy has a message for Italian friends?"
Absolutely. Well, my wife is from Milano also. Her mom is there, and the rest of her family, her brother, sister-in-law, nephew, some aunts and uncles and cousins, and she Skypes with her mom every single day.
Nice.
And so we hear the ringing Italian dialogue echoing through the house, usually with laughter too, and it's quite nice. Her mom's a bit older, so we're very concerned about all the older folks that we know and love. But it's gonna pass eventually. And I heard somebody speaking the other day about, it's not an earthquake or hurricane or tornado. We still got roads. We still got an infrastructure, electricity. There's power. There's water. There's infrastructure. So when it does pass, it will come back. Sadly, this is part of nature. We've avoided a plague for so long, it's almost unnatural.
Yeah.
And this one happens to be particularly awful in that it's most older folks are susceptible to it much more so than younger people, and that's our heritage and our life, and that's where we came from, and that's the holders of wisdom for the next generation. So I'm hoping it's over soon, but it will pass. It will pass, and grazie mille.
Well, fantastic.
Thanks a lot.
And that means a lot to me hearing that as well, too, for this whole fact that I never really put that into perspective. The fact that you mentioned this is not an earthquake. It's not, any kind of attack as far as, wars or anything like that. So infrastructure will still be there. And I never really put that into thought process. And that is comforting because, you watch all these horror movies and things like, the Days After and all this other kind of crazy stuff. And, trying to get from point A to point B, sometimes you got to take a boat, there's no more roads. So that's good. Thank you for sharing that, because that really probably puts a lot of us at ease.
When I heard that, it struck me because, that's true, and we're going to lose people. But there is a degree, I don't want to get controversial, but there is a degree of media panic that is kind of unprecedented because, and the point I try to make about that, in the 2017-18 flu season, in America, 79,400 people died of the flu, and we never heard a word about it.
Right.
So any death is too many deaths. And I'm not underplaying the fact that it's lower deaths now, because there's the regular flu is going around too, and it took out tens of thousands of people this year also. So it is true that this is an unknown we're facing here, a lot of speculation about it, but it's not as bad as it's made out to be. That I'm sure of.
Right.
But it doesn't mean be lax about all the recommendations we have to follow. I'm following them to the letter as best I can, and I hope everyone else is too. But nevertheless, I think it's going to pass. We're going to be okay, and it will return.
Well, that's good. And think of it this way. I mean, we have spend some time at home with our families, whether you love your family or not. And maybe you might be at each other's.
Find it out now.
That's right. You're going to find out for sure. But, spend some time at home, get some things done. You have no excuse. Those honey-do lists are no longer valid. You have to cash them in now, and we got to take care of our chores. But be safe. and let this pass. And as we said, the infrastructure is going to be there. So when you go back out, the roads are going to be there. They might need some maintenance along the ditches and the highways and things like that, but the roads are going to be there, so we'll be good. Yeah. Here's a couple questions coming in from Stuart. And this was a question I had later on in the program, so we'll credit it to Stuart. He's asking about the new Sunburst Yamaha Attitude limited edition. Do you have any word on that when it might be coming available for the public?
Yeah, I spoke with some Yamaha people, and they're a little bit concerned about, I hope I'm not saying anything that's confidential, but they're kind of rethinking when they're going to launch it, only because of the situation at hand. And they don't, and launching it is kind of a celebratory thing. And right now is not necessarily the time to be celebrating.
No, I agree.
So they may push it back a bit. Here it is right here, right here. I got it right here.
Oh, beautiful.
And I had it out because I wanted to, when we start talking about gear a little bit more, I've got the new DiMarzio pickups in there.
Right on.
And it's quite interesting. I think I'll go through them, what they do and what's different about them. I think everyone will find it interesting when we come to that. But I had it out with me on tour on the Sons of Apollo as my backup 6-string bass, so I played it a lot. And it's just glorious. It's a wonderful instrument. I think they're only making 30 because of the 30-year anniversary.
Oh, wow. That's going
to
be
already. I'm in trouble with a lot of people. So
I know. I
got to figure out a way to make sure a couple people can secure one. So
good.
We're
did you hear that, John?
And matter of fact, I'm suggesting that we take a couple of those and maybe do some kind of an auction or something like that, so we can raise funds for certainly for musicians, because
they need it.
Yeah, we are. I'm doing okay. I'm very grateful. I'm very thankful, but a lot of my friends are not, and a lot of crew guys are not, and a lot of sound lights drivers, stage hands.
Yeah,
it's decimated. So I want to do what I can. I may pull a few out of those 30 and see if I can talk Yamaha into doing something that we can raise some money, find a way that we can make sure that money gets into their pockets too. It doesn't get lost in some bureaucracy. So
yeah,
we're gonna. So we'll see what happens. But thanks for your question about it. I road testing it by having it with me on tour is always a great way to really get into it, especially because my hands start to get in shape. I know another thing, through the years, it takes me about a week or two, sometimes 2 weeks, to get my hands really up to speed. And only then can I really test what sounds the way it sounds and plays the way it plays. So it's a little built-in problem, because I just need to hit it hard live, because no matter how hard I practice, it never really simulates what it is like live. So my calluses are where the tone's coming from, so I got to build them up. The only way to really build them up is by changing strings every night, going out and do 2 hours or more, and warming up all day long for about a week or two. So, that's having that bass with me was great, because my hands were very warmed up and really getting in shape after the American leg of the tour before we went to Europe. And then by the time I got there, I was in good shape. So it was just great to play it. And I think everyone who gets a chance to try one out, or if you get a chance to get one, you're going to be very, very pleased.
Well, that's great. I can't wait. I got to see it at NAMM there, which was nice.
Right.
At the display. Did you see right around the corner as well, too? Just a couple weeks back, I had Jeff Schroeder from Smashing Pumpkins on. Did you see his glowing orange, pink custom Pacifica he had there?
No, I didn't see it.
It was just probably around the corner. The bass was over here, and then there was a couple. There was, I think, Chris Buck's Rev Star. I forget who else's guitar. I know he had Jess, but he's got this kind of beautiful glowing neon pink orange Pacifica, like stocked out Floyd Rose. Oh, beautiful. So it's nice seeing both of your instruments here for sure. Awesome.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking of which, I have these. I got 2 of them from Larry DiMarzio. They were this fluorescent. I did a couple photo shoots with him.
Oh, yeah.
You can see that. All right.
Yep.
But Larry at one point did necks and bodies, and then put his hardware on them. And I got 2 of them from him back in the early or the mid 80s, I think. And so I still have them here. They're pretty striking.
I guess so.
Color.
Love it. So more questions coming in the chat as well too, and to give me an example as well too, the sacrifices that a lot of us are making. We had to miss a birthday party today as well too. It was our granddaughter's birthday party, and even though they're about 15 minutes away, it's not safe. So we did a virtual, like a Zoom meeting, and we got to wish our granddaughter Paisley happy birthday. So we're all doing our thing.
Okay.
So here's a question from, let me see here. Chuck Booth, can you ask Billy about the MIDI pedal he uses for piano fills when Richie has to switch guitar, of course, in the Winery Dogs? Is that a complicated setup?
No, it's quite easy and really cool. I'll go into my little storage room here.
Sure.
I think I have one right here. I do. Here we go. It's the Keith McMillan 12-step.
Wow. Okay. That's pretty simple.
Keith had a MIDI switcher board like this, and the buttons were arranged not like a keyboard. They were just arranged 8 on the top, 8 on the bottom.
Gotcha.
And I contacted Keith McMillan one day and I said, "Can you change the position of those and make them MIDI on off?" So you actually plug it in and play it like a keyboard, because I do have another. I'm glad I'm home while we're doing this. I can show you a couple things here. I did have a couple other custom ones made. Let me grab it here out of the mess. This is what they looked like before.
Oh, wow.
So it's basically on-off switches made into a keyboard with the MIDI in and out. There it is.
Gotcha. Simple.
And but it's a little large. Oh, here's the thing that Keith initially came out with. This guy here.
Oh, sweet.
Sorry about the light.
That's okay. That's good.
I'm winging it here.
Yeah, you can see it.
That was when I said, "Can you reconfigure that?" And he said, "No, because they're built on the circuit board itself. The switches are right on it, so we couldn't move those." I see. And I told him, well, my idea was to do a keyboard like that, because it's so much smaller than the thing I have.
Right.
Even though that's way smaller than Taurus pedals, or I actually use the Roland. Sorry about the hand.
That's okay.
The Roland version of the Taurus pedals, they looked the same, but it was just a MIDI controller as opposed to Taurus pedals that had a synth built in. So I told him about how cool would it be if you could also program it so that when you hit a note, you could play a chord.
Sure.
And program those in. And we talked about it for a while. A wonderful guy. He's got some great inventions too. He's quite an inventor. And so we said our goodbyes. I said, "Okay, well, I hope I see you around." About a couple months later, he calls me. He goes, "Hey, I did it. I did what? I made the thing you talked about." You're kidding. So the 12-step is there. And I've seen a lot of guys. I think one of the first Prague cruise I did. Yeah. I think with PSMS, a precursor to Sons of Apollo. I saw 2 or 3 bass players carrying them around. And I thought, all right, mission accomplished. That's basically cool. You just plug it into any MIDI synth, and that's your controller, like a keyboard. And it has its own software also, where you can open it up and assign more than one note to each pedal. So in Regret, the song I do with the Winery Dogs, I get a Fender Rhodes patch, or Wurlitzer patch, because that's what Richie used on the song. And I just do it in the key of, I'm not sure what key it's in, but whatever it is, I just built the chords around that. So when he pulls off those chords to solo, bang, I'm playing the chords with my feet. And I only use about 2% of what the potential is. Sure. Because I have it plugged into a main stage in a laptop. It's the easiest way to get synth sounds, and lightweight and easy to do it. A lot easier than a hardware synth, and it's very reliable. I haven't had it go down on me ever. But with MainStage, you can run a whole show, including the lights. Yeah, that's great. MIDI to run the lights. So the potential is unbelievable, and that's another thing I'm going to do with my garage soon. That's why I had that in that spot. I'm going to take it out, set it up out there, so I can start playing and come up with a lot more things to do. And then also for endings and such, I have it set on this super deep, ultra low subsonic pulses. So when the band ends, you hit that at the very end, and the whole building shakes.
That's cool.
Really, especially for a 3-piece band, it really, really adds a lot. And you can set it up for any sound you can imagine: strings, mellotrons, human voices. You could program background vocals if you want to cheat
Sure.
into it. Also, program your own bass tone into it, so when you're playing, you can kind of play along with yourself. Hit it. It's infinitely configurable. Hit a note and walk away, and the note will stay on. Hit a note, lift your foot, it'll turn off. They fade in and out. The whole synthesis thing I got into because I've been trying to do this since I saw the GBX floor bass. Remember GBX?
Yes, I do actually.
The Canadian company.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to play keyboards, but I saw the GBX floor bass, and that was arranged as a fretboard and not as a keyboard.
Right.
So I was excited about it, but the GBX floor bass only had one tone, which is kind of this purple boost tone,
Sure.
So that was it. And so from there, from that point on, that must have been the early 70s that came out. From then on, I was trying to come up with a way, and Keith McMillan's 12-step did it. Not expensive. Rock solid. I usually mount it on a board because it is a little flexible, and if it's the carpeting on the stage, I don't want to step on it. But rock solid. Plug it into a main stage or any software synth in your laptop, and you're ready to go.
Very, very versatile. So I'm glad that question was asked. That's fantastic. And here's a question from our buddy, everyone's buddy, John. Will
Right
says
now.
he would like to know some details on the Rochester Comp.
Good question. The next build, I believe, is going to have the. I'll go out there now because I think this is a perfect timing for this. I go to my garage here. Ashley Audio was a company I was introduced to very, very early on. Their audio in Rochester, New York, one city over from Buffalo. So when I had a problem with my gear, there's a guy named Dick Zakari, and he was great engineer. Worked with Chuck Mangione in the early days and a couple things like that. Also worked very closely with Mick Gazowski. So if anybody knows, he's one of the golden ear guys, one of the greatest producer, mixer, engineer guys around. He would do like Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey records. This guy is as good as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Mick actually built a preamp for me one time. I would do anything to get it back. I sold it off long ago, and it would be worth a lot now.
Yeah.
But the Rochester Comp comes basically from this. There's an Ashley Audio compressor limiter.
Okay.
That's what I use in my. This is a little rack setup of the basics.
Okay.
The Pierce, crossover, compressor, and noise gate. So generally, prior to the Pierce being in the Helix, that was the rack I could travel with. When I'd show up, they'd have 2 amps for me and 2 sets of speakers, and that's how I'd plug in. I generally plug right into the low amp and then just use the compression from the channel 2 of the Ashley, and then have the Pierce clean channel compressed by the Ashley also. There's also a compressor in the Pierce,
right,
which we love. But the Ashley was just a great, and it was a true, actually it's now a 6-knob compressor, but it was a true 5-knob compressor initially. So it had threshold ratio, attack, release, and input or output. Now it's got gain control in there also. So it's they've even increased it. So I went in and sat down with a couple of the engineers at Line 6. They were very kind to accommodate me on this because John and I worked quite a bit talking back and forth about the compression that's in the Helix.
Mm-hmm.
And it's there and it's cool, but even the engineers at Line 6 said it's not, on paper it doesn't always translate to real life.
Right.
And compression is a funny thing. I bought some great compressors, and they just didn't do it for me. And I found some little cruddy ones that were amazing. So it's a funny feel kind of a thing. So the Line 6 people were kind enough to sit me down, and I had my Ashley compressor that's still there with my rack and my original Pierce.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt, I'm gonna ask for that back at some point. So we went in and sat down with it with all the software available there. It was amazing to see. rocket science for sure.
Yeah.
And we came up with a way to get that Ashley in a software version of that Ashley audio compressor. They put it into a build, a test build. I got it, and I sent one to John Willis also. But that's where it came from. And originally, the original Ashleys I have in my rack here, they were the these are my original 2 Ashley, 5 knobs, and these are kind of sought after by guitarists because they sound great. And that's the basis for the Ashley audio tone.
Okay.
My very first preamp that I had custom made was an Ashley audio input module from one of their consoles. So that was the beginning of the whole preamp power amp thingy that took when SVTs were failing and upkeep was too expensive. I eventually went that. I lost that preamp somewhere too, unfortunately. But and my first parametric EQ, and one of the first I ever saw was an Ashley audio parametric EQ. Really learned a lot from that company. Great stuff. So it's in the new build. And
fantastic.
I know John and I messaged back and forth a little bit, and I could just sit there all day and just play to that compressor with nothing else. It sounds great. It really feels good. It's got a nice pulse and pump to it, but it's not overbearing. And the clean tone now with that compression on it just sings.
Oh,
so
that's good to hear.
Matt would know. Maybe he can give us an inside scoop on when the next build is coming out, and it'll have that in it.
Well, actually, I spoke with Frank on Friday. I had Frank just a very brief interview on Friday. It was about 15 minutes. It's up on my channel right now. We just checked to see how all the staff were doing at Line 6, and everyone's doing good. They're working from home. And
great.
One of the nice things is the development team can still work from home, which is great. So it's coming. We weren't able to get any kind of ETA, but I think it's whatever the time frame was going to be. I don't think this is going to put much of a damper on it. A delay. So whenever it was going to be, it's probably going to be very close to that. But it's really funny you mentioned the Ashleys and you said how they're sought after by guitar players, and the bass player playing it like yourself. You're not the average bass player. Your frequencies, you kind of share some frequencies with guitar players quite often, because you're running that high gain rig a lot of times, and so I can see why they're very special to you.
Yeah, that came from being in a 3-piece band and needing to fill up all those empty holes when the guitar player would do a solo. And it helped out a lot, and it works well. And it's kind of interesting to know as I look into other bass players' history of their tones. A lot of guys kind of came to the same conclusion that you do need like Lemmy's tone, John Wetton's tone, a lot of other Jack Bruce,
sure,
distorted tone, Mel Shacker from Grand Funk. Hugely distorted tone with the EBO pickup on there also. So it's interesting. We're all kind of faced with the same thing, and interesting how a lot of people come up with some variation of the same solution.
Yeah.
In order to do that. And even if you're going to be hi-fi and no distortion, splitting your signals is a great way of getting that tone too, super clean. And I always use as an example, in any PA speaker, there's a woofer and a tweeter.
Yes, and crossover.
They separate frequencies out, and let each transducer do less bandwidth. It makes it much more efficient. So even for a super ultra clean tone, non-distortion, no compression player, it's a solution as well. Yeah. And the Helix, the big Helix, I don't have it set up here now. I've got the Stomp.
Nice. And
I've got the Suncoast. Which is quite a great little, can you see it?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. John Sikora sent it out. It's basically designed exactly for what I need it for. The distortion and clean and then low. So it's pretty much how I used to use my 2 Pierces. So it's really cool, but I haven't had a chance to hear it loud. So what I did is I took a little mixer, split my signal, went into both the Stomp and the Suncoast, got a mixer, and I'm mixing them both together. And it's pretty cool because you got the whole analog world and the infinite configurability of the Helix.
Yeah.
Riding right along next to it. So I don't know if I would ever use that live, but it's kind of fun to sit down here and
for sure,
pound away on it. And watch it. So I'll pour, put some peanuts out for the squirrels and, on the driveway, and they come and they look at me and they're not sure, and they're starting to get used to me now. So
that's great.
So I sit out here and play through. This is the latest experimental nonsense.
Well, I know the advanced routing capabilities of Helix are no stranger to you, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with John Button. He's been on the show before. He's currently playing with The Who. He's filling in, actually, he's still playing with The Who, and he's running a pretty advanced rig as well, too. He's using Helix, but he gave us one of his presets a while back, and he sends a line out to a couple 810 Ampeg, rigs, and other stuff's going to front of house. So, I mean, the routing capabilities are just absolutely insane what you can do. It's only your imagination is a limitation.
Yeah, I love that there's so much. Actually, I finally did, I think our last show in Germany that we did on Sons of Apollo. We did 2 shows in Germany, then we did Norway and Sweden, and then we decided to get back home due to the situation. But I'd never done it before, but we had this great sound engineer, a German gentleman by the name of Frank, and he's actually lives in Nashville here too. And I gave him the direct out from the Helix.
Wow.
No mic. I pulled the Band-Aid off.
It works.
And it was great. Fortunately, we had time in a controlled situation because it was a sound stage. We got to rehearse for a day and then do 2 shows on the same stage in the same building. So we had time for sound check.
Good.
We had time to do it. My hands were in shape. So I just gave him the direct out, and I could feel that thing coming off the front system just so nicely. And as I get to the lip of the stage and really hear it ringing out, it was pounding. I think ultimately that's the way I'd like to go.
Yeah.
And eliminate the mic, but it requires a lot of trust.
Yeah.
From your sound man, because you can. And my sound is an unusual, oddball tone too. So a lot of times back in the days, they just want one single direct out from my pickup before my rig.
Yeah.
They would take that, put that in the PA, and I'd be playing on stage. The harmonics being and up front they'd be click.
Yeah.
Click, click, with nothing on them. So so I actually did do it with a big Helix. I actually ran direct. So it was a step into the future for me.
Nice. That I know that's so, it's so taboo for you normally, but you're getting there. That's cool. Here's a question earlier. Our good friend Colin asked when you were showing off the Pierce and whatnot. He says, do you still use the Pierce even though it's in Helix, or is it just there now for safekeeping in the rack?
I use a Helix all the time and only.
Okay.
That's all since I first stuck it up on stage at the Canyon Club in LA with Matt there and the people from Line 6 there. And I remember I thought, well, I'll check it on the sound check, but I don't want to use it for the show because it's LA and I don't want to take the chance.
Yeah.
And I remember said, okay, I'll do it. And I remember watching them. I swear to God, the whole band looking over at me like, it sounds amazing. Pat Torpy, God rest his soul. He's such a wonderful guy, and we had a great bass and drum communication. He's looking over at me. That sounds amazing.
Wow.
And my business partner, Mike Faley, was out in the audience, and he's been there with me since the early 70s as sound man and everything. And I saw his arms waving. That's it. That's the sound, So
nice.
Since then, that's all I've used.
Well, that's pretty good. That's great testimonies, and we all miss Pat for sure. I know he was very, very close to you, so I know it's been a while, but I know you never forget. So that's the best to you there. A couple other questions as well too. First of all, there's a super chat from Frank. He says, "Thank you Frank Rashad at Line 6. Thank you for keeping us entertained. We need it really bad." I agree. And Andrew Bonica, who's formerly from Line 6, he used to be. How they have all the different product managers or the product owners. Helix, and there's Power Cab, and there's Variax. Well, he was a Variax guy, and still a advocate for the Variax guitars. He's asked a question. He says, and thank you for the super chat, both of you gentlemen. He says, "Can you ask Billy how he likes living in Nashville versus LA? I went for my first time to Nashville last month and loved it."
Well, it's there. Some people are calling Nashville the new LA because it's unfortunately the music scene in LA is not doing as well as it could be. Sadly, I love LA. I lived there for 32 years. It was the place I went to. I got flown out to by David Lee Roth to join his band, and that was my success. Thank you, Dave. I will never lose my gratitude to him for that. And I just watched the documentary on the Rainbow Bar and Grill last night, and that was starting in 1985. I lived there just about every night, and it was an amazing scene. But some mid 90s on, it started really falling apart, and now especially they got a new rule about the gig economy where you can't just go out and pay somebody to play or to you got a crew guy you want to help you for the night. You can't. You got to hire him as a employee and pay his health care. And it's going to really, on top of the virus situation and the shrinking of a lot of live venues, they get hit with that now. I hope they can turn that around. It's really rough. So, but Nashville, there is real Southern hospitality here. People really work to help each other out. I work with a bunch of people here in town in various situations, and everybody's with each other, sharing gigs. They, somebody, bass player has a gig, then he feels he's not right for it. I get a call for it. Nobody, holds on to stuff tightly like that. They're generous and cool about it. The winters are mild. I'm from Buffalo, so any winter is mild to me. But winters are mild. The air is clean. It's safe. Great vibe here. And after 32 years in LA, like I said, I still love it, and it'll always be a part of my life, and I'll always go back a lot. But I at this point in my life, I have a lovely wife, and we managed to score a very nice home at a low price. Nice. Thank God. We really lucked out here. And it's a lot of Nashville real estate now is going up in price because so many people want to live here. But there's still great deals to be had. And if you want to live a little bit further out in a little more solitude and wildlife and country living a little bit, not far out of town, you can get a great deal on things. But we absolutely love Nashville. But I do miss Paquito Mas in LA. What's the Mexican restaurant? Sure. Second to none. So I'm trying to get him to put one in Nashville. That'd be great.
Yeah. One of our other previous show guests over, not on the Helix Hour, but over on our Rock Shop Live is Line 6. Sorry, not Line 6, but a Yamaha guitars artist. You'd know her, I'm sure. She lives in Nashville now, too, as well, too. Katie Cole from Smashing Pumpkins, and she's, a famous songwriter as well, too. So, yeah, she loves Nashville. Nothing but praise for it, for sure. And it's funny that you talked about David Lee Roth, because there's a question from, and I mean, of course, I love Van Halen, and I think Van Halen wouldn't be Van Halen without David Lee Roth. I love all eras of them. But Rob Q says, can you ask Billy what it was like to tour with David Lee Roth? So I mean, you've had experience with many groups that you've been on worldwide stages and crazy festivals. But I mean, touring with Roth must have been a trip. We
had a riot. That was a great thing about the Eat 'em and Smile tour. After the Eat 'em and Smile Skyscraper, I left and I heard from the guys that it wasn't as much fun. I don't know really what happened. I think it's people around Dave, I think, were, starting making things less fun for sure.
Yeah, putting ideas in people's heads. And
yeah, Eat 'em and Smile, we had a riot. And me, Steve, and Greg, and Brett Tuggle, the keyboard player, we get together almost every year at Christmas time and have a dinner together. Dave almost showed up once or twice.
Oh, wow.
We would love to have him along. But
sure.
With the stories we could tell is just mind-blowing. And it was great and cool, and Dave let us do our thing. And Dave was a grandmaster. The guitar battle Steve and I did back and forth, that was Dave's idea.
Nice.
We were just doing our respective solos. I go up there, do my whittly bits, and into a song. Steve would go and do his whittly whammy bits, and then we'd go on. And Dave was saying, it's not entertaining. Let's make it kind of like a tractor pull, a battle. And that was his idea completely. So we did that, and it made it way more entertaining for people that weren't musicians, which is what Dave was all about. Is you're just playing to musicians. I always say, without Dave, Van Halen would have been kind of Gary Moore, a great player.
Yeah,
we love him, but it's not enough people knew about him. Without Eddie, Dave would have been Jim Dandy Mangro.
There you go, exactly, nailed it.
And there's a lot of similarities. Well, the Jack Daniels, Jim Dandy, very, very similar.
Honestly, I don't know if I've ever heard that before. I don't know if you've said it in other interviews or not, but I don't know if I've ever heard it said. And I'm naive if I've missed it, that was Dave's idea. That's awesome, and that puts great perspective on Dave, because everyone thinks it's Dave's way, and I know Dave is focused and it is his way, but at the same time, to say Steve and Billy, let's do a show, let's do a bit of a bit here.
Yeah, Yeah, it was, and almost everything about the whole show and tour and record and songs were Dave directed it.
Yeah.
You know, which was really cool. I'm forever grateful to him also for including Shy Boy on the record.
Oh
because,
yeah, I know, right?
And he allowed me to keep my publishing on it, which meant I was remunerated pleasantly. Very, very nice. And,
another cool factor. Yes.
Yeah, he was cool with everything. And myself, Greg, and Steve, and Brett, we have undying love for the guy and great respect for him always. So, you know, everyone always asks, is there any rumor? And there's nothing.
Yeah.
Dave's off doing his thing. God bless him. I wish him nothing but the best. But I haven't heard anything about us playing with him at all. But what a riot! What a riot we had.
And you know what? I mean, I know, you know, when Dave left Van Halen, you know, it wasn't exactly the nicest leave, and you know, they were kind of at each other's throats. But you know, as much as we all love Van Halen, when that band come together, it was like, holy crap!
No kidding,
right?
Well, Talus opened up in 1980 for about 30 shows, and on their worst night, they were only spectacular.
Yeah, and that's
they
something
were unbelievable.
Yeah.
And we get finished with our set, you know, dry off, and we go out into the audience to watch the show every single night. And we learn so much about how to present a show by seeing that.
Yeah.
And so much of the shtick and all the things that happened, they were all choreographed and all figured out. And Dave would make pretty much the same jokes every night.
Of course.
And we would laugh every night too. That's how enamored with them we were. We would laugh every single night at the same joke. But then I spoke with him about it later. He goes, you know, you don't want to wing it.
Yeah.
When you're in front of 20,000 people, let's use a joke that we know works.
That's right.
Let's do a bit that we know is funny. And since then, I've seen a lot of singers try and go up there and as frontmen try to, you know, do it off the cuff, and other times they bomb. And 1 out of 20 shows is mildly entertaining, you know. So he had it down to a science, you know.
Oh yeah.
He had a little X on the stage marked off with tape, and during Everybody Wants Some, the stage would fill up with dry ice cloud. A crew guy would crawl out underneath the dry ice and lay a joint down on the X and then crawl back. So Dave would be up there, and as the fog would clear away, and he'd say, hey, hold on a second. Wait, Alex, stop. Wait. And he'd look down on the ground, reach down, the wall spotlights on him, pick up the joint, and hold it up, St. Louis, what the hell is this? And the whole place, he'd light it up and take a hit off it. You people are crazier than and they would and they go, hey, everybody wants some. And
nice.
So it's a pure stick, but man, it worked like a charm. It was amazing.
I had my first experience of being scripted. I played in a Van Halen tribute band here in Canada. It was more of a Sammy Hagar era. The guy looked, Dave, my good buddy Dave from London, Ontario, looked exactly like Sammy Hagar. As a matter of fact, we met Van Halen in Detroit when Gary was singing with them, and Gary was looking at Dave like he was Sammy Hagar. But same thing, everything was scripted. And that was my first experience to being scripted with the shtick, just like Dave Lee Roth every single night. And then I realized, you know, not everybody's going to see you every single night in every single town.
Exactly.
So it was a new show, and it did make you make sure that what works, like you said, what works, and you can improvise a tiny bit, maybe rotate a song, but the shtick, the spiel is the same thing, and it does work.
But similar to playing, if you improvise a thing and it works, keep it in.
Yeah, of course.
If you improvise it doesn't work,
get rid of it. That's right.
It comes, I do believe it comes from a club mentality, because your same friends are there every night. You can't do the same joke every night because they were there last night.
That's right.
And so Dave managed to remove himself from that club mentality when they made the step up from the club gigs in LA to halls and arenas. Some guys never get out of that club mentality, and it doesn't always work the same when you're in a bigger venue and a new crowd every night. So it's an interesting set of circumstances behind it all.
Well, it's something I always loved. I mean, I didn't mean to get down the David Lee Roth tangent here, but something I really admired about him, and I still love him to death, is as a young lad, before even joining Van Halen, but joining Van Halen, every backyard party they dreamed of playing in front of the world. And now on stage, whether it be David solo with you guys or with Van Halen, whatever, they wanted to bring that stage back to the backyard party. It's so funny, it comes full circle, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah. Here is the question.
I'm so grateful for that experience. That was my life is supremely enriched by the whole thing, and I learned so much. I had a PhD in showbiz from Dr. David Lee Roth.
That's awesome. And
Pretty
great band. I mean, I love Steve Vai as well too. It's fantastic.
Steve is awesome.
Dave McLean's asking, do you have to clean out your rack routinely, or is it like you're either changing stuff, or I'm not sure what he means by cleaning it out, but are you going through rack, doing maintenance on it, maybe in downtime, or what do you do with some of your rack gear?
I don't take much rack gear out with me at this point. I just lay the Helix on top. I would have 3 Hartke LH1000s, one for the highs, one for the lows, one for the synth pedals,
okay,
and one for a spare. In case one goes down, you can just quick reconnect it. I've never had one go down ever, or any problem with any of them. So then I just put the Helix floor on top of that. People laugh at me because I don't have it on the floor where I can step on the buttons, and I do it by hand.
Sure.
But it comes from, for years and years and years, I had all rack gear. So I have to go back to it and fiddle with it to do whatever I did, which inadvertently made it kind of look like it was some kind of a mad scientist thing. So it actually worked in my favor, I think, in some capacity anyway. So I never, one time I had a Delta Lab super prime time delay, an amazing flanging in it. It was the deepest, most vicious flange. And the controller for it was just a wire that went out to some switches. And sure enough, I used it at a gig. Someone stole the thing off the stage. So that's why I hate to have stuff out there from the early days in the clubs, people, because they have access to it. So somebody stole it. I got it back amazingly, but that's again why I keep all my controls back there. So I just go back, and I don't do a lot of changes during the show. So with the Helix, sometimes I like boost the clean a little bit more. I got a Leslie tone, a little bit of chorus like the Harmonizer 101. I still got my old Harmonizer I used to have to give it that little shimmer of pitch change. Sounds like a chorus.
Yep.
And maybe an octave up or an octave down. I'll do an octave down on the lows, an octave up on the highs, and this monstrous tone comes out of it. And the low, the Helix version, I think it's an EBS pedal that they modeled.
Okay.
I might be mistaken about that. Because initially I just used kind of the harmonizer low, but I went to the pedal version in the Helix, and man, it is devastating. So I use that low pickup through an octave down. Man, it tears the place apart. So that's great. Again, there's one song we do, New World Today, off the new Sons of Apollo record. It's got some really impossible hairy parts on it. So I had to capo the upper neck on the 7th fret. So the low string was now a B, only 7 frets up, and play this riff on that. But it was too high pitched, so I used the octave down. But I've got about 0.01 milliseconds to make the move.
Oh, God.
So I had to rehearse it with Jeff, the crew guy. When I turn around, you hit the button, and right at the end of the thing, and it's an odd time thing, so it's hard to tell where it is, to turn it off and go back to the other neck. But that low thing in the Helix is just mind-blowing. I love it.
Well, just because, I mean, you have to go back and slap the Helix, and I mean, that's you, man. That sets you apart from the other people. That's cool. Yeah. John Mulvey, one of my good friends, this is a technical question, and I'm sure you'll love the question. He's asking, and if you can answer, what frequencies do you split your crossovers at?
Yeah, I use, here's the little guy. I hope we can see it. Let me see if I can, yeah.
Okay.
The little Rolls tiny two-way crossover. Now, initially I had Ashley proper crossovers, pro audio. But when you try to get things smaller, this is basically all I need. It's basically, I use it as a high-pass filter. The low output goes nowhere. It's just the high output. And I got it here at about 300, maybe sometimes a little, maybe 350, maybe a little less. I just found that if you, here, let me set this down and see if I can do this.
Sure.
While I'm at the setup. Here we go. Come on, baby. So here, I'll turn this on. It takes a second to warm up.
Yep.
I'll kind of illustrate what I'm talking about here rather than shut up and play your guitar, I guess. Okay, so coming up here. Come on, baby. There it is. Can you hear that?
Yeah, we can. You can go a bit louder if you can.
Turn it up a little bit. That audible?
You should go a bit louder if you can, yeah. There we go.
That okay?
Yep.
Okay. So as I change this, I'll turn the low down. Not a lot of low end. So as I change this, nothing. Take it way up. So you just get that. It's just the thinnest little tiny thing. And as you turn it down,
there you go.
Until eventually you got full bass on there. So to just trim that off, I'll take it to about 350. And that way with the distortion off, how do we turn the distortion off? Not sure. So now the clean tone, not a lot of low to it, but as a result, the chord voicings are very audible.
Beautiful.
Like so you can hear those voicings. Now you can add the low end to that. But because that high end has a low end removed from it,
gotcha.
It always you can always hear the voicing of the chord and the harmonic content of that note. So that's where the crossover. Now, if you don't want to go, now the crossover I use is the high pass filter inside the Helix now.
Okay.
I don't use this anymore. It'd be interesting experiment to maybe try that and not use a high pass. I guess if you wanted to save a block,
sure,
you could put this you could put this after there if you wanted to. But I don't need that many blocks for my basic Helix setup.
Yeah, so you can still use that.
I use the high pass filter inside the Helix. It works perfectly. You can just dial it whatever you want that frequency point to be. You can get a little gain out of it. You can get a little gain out of this as well. Does that make sense?
It does. And you know something's really cool, because you talked about using chorus from time to time. I'm going to send you one of my presets later on, and only for the one reason, I want you to try one block out of it. Take away everything else because it's made for guitar. But I do, a lot of wet, dry, wet stuff with my guitar stuff, and I'll use a pitch detune. And what I'll do is kind of like the Eventide and all that other kind of stuff. And I won't change the tuning of the guitar or the signal, but I'll throw out the millicents, like the cents, on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. And because you run to do like a low frequency and a high frequency, going to two different spectrums, so I'll go, let's say, like a -9 to -11 on the left, +9 to +11 on the right. I'd love to see what it would sound like with your bass. I'll send you that. Yeah, just try it.
I'll try it out.
Yeah, and see what you think with it. So Helix has been working out really good for you. It's something that obviously now, I mean, especially with the new updates coming out, we've got some great stuff on the horizon. It's so cool to see someone like yourself that's used the biggest rigs in the world. I mean, your rig alone would probably take a semi, and you can now throw it in your backpack and travel in a little Toyota car or whatever.
Yeah, it's really. I've been an early adopter of all things digital from the beginning. And I remember my little kidney shape Line 6 pod.
Yeah.
Man, when I first got that, because they had a Zoom, had a little box that was pretty good, but they had to process it to make it. It wasn't modeling.
Right.
And I remember I had that, and I had it in my little home studio, and it sounded okay, and I thought, well, I should plug this into my amp. And no, it didn't. It didn't quite work, but it was cool though. I like the Zoom. I have one of the original ones that goes on your strap.
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
The strap-mounted one.
Yeah.
I still have that. There's some great tones out of that.
That's pretty cool.
But then when that kidney-shaped pod came out, man, playing through that, and you hear the speaker moving in the air, it was just fantastic. So
yeah,
it's interesting to see the evolution from there to where we are now. And it's great. What a great toolbox for everybody. Really fantastic.
It is.
No matter what your style or what you're into, there's great stuff in there. It's only going to get better too. There's going to be more. I'm sure at some point they'll they've never talked with it about this with me. I don't know any inside information at all, but at some point there's probably going to be a new device that is faster processing and more processing. As it is now, this thing does everything I could imagine and more. I can't imagine where they would go up from here, but I'm sure they're working on it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, like any company, right? There's always working on the next technology, and that's hard to fathom because I mean, no matter where we are, whatever brand you like. I mean, today, like we're talking about Line 6 products, everyone makes a great product today. We're at a nice plateau. Which can only get better. Now it's to the point where everyone's like, okay, I get this now. I get this modeling thing. I can dig this. Did you ever hear the term? It's not a term, but per se, but because we're all starting to gravitate towards this digital stuff. And I know I went through this. I went through a guilt process because I had a lot of money invested in analog gear. I had all the Van Halen amps. I had a pedal board. That's just a board alone was probably $700 US without any pedals on it.
Oh yeah.
Another couple $1,000s worth of pedals. And I liked my sound so much better out of Helix. And I'd look back many times. I was like, I had serious anxiety because, I'm not using that stuff anymore. Have you ever heard people in the industry talking about like that kind of like, man, I got so much stuff being wasted?
No, well, I've never heard of that before, but I could see it makes perfect sense to me because we've all invested. I didn't even start driving till I was 25 because I spent all my money on gear.
Right.
Fortunately, I had guys in the band would come pick me up at my house, but I didn't even own a car or have a license till I was 25 because I spent everything I had on my gear. And it was an endless money pit, but it resulted in a finely tuned, great thing that worked for me, that helped me develop my playing better and work within the band better. So when it came time to get rid of all that and move to something, I was quite glad about it because it really did make life, as you know, it's way simpler now.
Sure.
And sound checks are a breeze. I don't have to worry about any mispatching or broken cabling. It's all inside, all in the box. And it's really an amazing time. And the little stomp out here that I'm using for this setup, I've just been playing. I will bring the big one out here in a day or so and set it up like it is for the live show. But the little stomp is just fantastic.
Oh, it sure is.
A run of clinics in South America. And the promoter asked me to play with local musicians, like about 5 or 6 songs. Mm-hmm. So I sent down the songs for them to learn. And all the guys were pretty good, too. They pulled it off. It was pretty cool. But I just took the Helix, 2 Helix stomps with me, one for low, one for high.
Oh, cool.
No problem. Plugged in the 2 amps. It was all there. And it weighed, my whole rig weighed, about 6 pounds? Tops. The cords now weigh more than the box,
Isn't that something?
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You earlier talked about, the great opportunity working with David Lee Roth, but I had your pal, bandmate on the show on Friday. Jeff Scott Soto was on the show. We had a great discussion. Yeah, it was a great conversation. And I mean, he's got I know you know this, but he's got mad respect for you. And one of the things I thought was so cool, we talked about how Talus back in the day, you're very grateful for the David Lee Roth, but I mean, also had a nice run with Yngwie Malmsteen on the tour, and you guys were crossing paths. Little did you know that one day you're going to be in a kind of a quote unquote super group together. But what was that experience like working with the Yngwie tour?
That was great. Dave flew me out to, I flew out to LA on my own to start the Talus tour. We had an odd week a few months earlier. We got a phone call from the William Morris agency. Mm-hmm. They said they loved the band. They wanted to sign us and have us open up for Yngwie Malmsteen. Great. Danny Goldberg from Gold Mountain Records, he later went on to manage Nirvana. Great music biz guy.
Sure.
Contacted us and wanted to sign us. I said, wow, that's great. Then the third call came in, all within like 2 or 3 days. And it was David Lee Roth's office. They wanted to have a meeting with me because they wanted me to be in Dave's movie.
Oh, right on.
We found out later that was a cover. There was a movie, but it was a cover story because he didn't want people to know that he'd left the band.
Right. There you go.
And so when I flew out to start the tour with Yngwie, I said, well, I'll be out there anyway, so why don't we set up a meeting? And we did. So I went out before the tour started. The day before, I went out to Dave's house, and he said, well, there's a movie and blah, 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 but there's really the whole thing. I want to start a band. It's going to be you and me. We're going to find a guitar player, find a drummer, and we'll do it. And I said, I'm in. We're good.
Sure, why not?
Cool. So for that whole tour, I couldn't tell anybody that Dave quit Van Halen and I'm going to be in a band with him. You know?
Wow, the world didn't know yet.
Yeah, so it was a surreal thing. But on the other side, Ing is the king.
Yeah.
He is just so great. I know some people, they may have words about it, but I've never had a problem with Ing, and he's cool. And Jeff was just fantastic every night.
Killed it.
As he is now.
Yeah.
He's one of the lead singers that I do know, and I do know several that have no hint. They're immune to lead singer disease. They're utterly immune.
We brought that up.
And he is just the sweetest, great voice. And he's got a lot of soul to his voice, too.
Yep.
Which wouldn't necessarily be a useful thing in an Yngwie band or in a prog band. But once in a while, you hear the little tail ends of some of the way he does his scats and stuff, and it moves into a whole other direction instead of the typical kind of prog vocalist. And and his pitch is right on, and he's a joy to work with, top to bottom. And I'm so glad now we've gone full circle and we're finally playing together again. It's just fantastic.
Boy, he works great with you, and it's really funny. I know he wouldn't want me to put him on the same. I mean, we talked about other people that mentioned him in the same sentence, like your Ronnie James Dios, and there's all these other singers that we grew up listening to and loved as kids, and he's right in there with that range.
I agree.
Yeah, but and I'm glad you mentioned soul, and I mentioned this to Jeff, and he agreed. Van Halen would not be Van Halen without Dave's R&B and Motown sound. And Jeff, I mean, not that he's a guy that necessarily probably 24/7 listens to Motown R&B and soul, but he's got it. And as you said, that really influences and really makes him stand out. So when you say, okay, so we got Jeff Scott Soto singing in a prog band, why does he stand out so much? Well, number one, he has a unique voice, but that experience that he's listened to, right, for all those years.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree very much. And I believe that applies to players also, because if you have some background in, like my generation, we all played cover tunes all the time for a decade before anything ever happened. And learning that and playing those songs and playing the songs you had to play to get people on the dance floor, it works its way into your DNA. And then later on, it comes out, and it really can give you a wider range as a player, I believe. It's not always the ideal thing for every situation, of course, but I think it's very true with everybody. If you bring in a little bit different flavor to what you're doing, something that's out of the genre, it always kind of makes you stand out, and I believe generally in a good way. Yeah,
it's like we subconsciously save all these little tiny things, little nuggets for a rainy day, and we don't even realize we've tucked them away. It's like putting a box in a room that you never go to, and all of a sudden you're in a situation. All of a sudden something's working. You're like, I don't know where I got that from. But meanwhile, if 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, you were in a situation like that, and you just tucked it away.
Yeah. And I remember playing James Brown songs and tons of Motown, because everybody loved Motown. Sure. We did a rock version of Heat Wave, Dancing in the Streets before Van Halen did it. We did our rock version of Dancing in the Streets. Nice. Funny how so many bands think alike. I've got bootlegs of Van Halen's club days, and it looks like the Talus set list. It's Funk 49 by the James Gang, and all these songs.
ZZ Top.
Tons of ZZ Top. We did every ZZ Top song possible. So
sure.
Funny, interesting parallels.
Yeah. I know you've talked about this on our other shows before too, outside of the Helix Hour show, but you talk about Winery Dogs a lot. My good friend here in Canada, Guitar Hack, he runs a really cool YouTube channel as well too, and he says, ask Billy if there's any future plans with the Winery Dogs.
Absolutely. We had planned all along, because Richie was going to take this year. It was his 50th birthday, and he was going to take this year and do a solo thing and do a record, 50 for 50 songs on a record. And he told me that, like, once he got up to about 30, he goes, gee, I don't know if I can pull this off, but he did. It's pretty amazing. A lot of great songs too. Very, very good. I highly recommend it. But his whole plan was to just do that this year, and then next year we would do the Winery Dogs. We've already communicated back and forth about starting to write very soon.
Good.
Especially due to the situation, for a new Winery Dogs record. And we got into a thing with that band where we put out the first record, toured our asses off, went into the second record, did good with the second record too, toured our asses off, and we could have continued like that, but then you start to see the writing kind of thin out.
Yeah.
Because I think you really need to live some life. And most bands, their first record is awesome because they played that stuff in clubs for years.
Right.
Rearranged it, redid it, reworked it. Now there it is. And then their second record, that's what the sophomore jinx is, I think. Okay, you had 10 years to make your first record, 3 months to do your second. So we kind of just laid off it. And I love that band. I love playing in the Winery Dogs with Mike and Richie so much. And as much as I wanted to continue playing more, I think it was a wise idea just to keep the quality of the material up there, which in my humble opinion, we managed to do that on the first 2 records. So I'm looking forward to next year, and then hopefully we'll be done with all this the situation that we're all in the middle of right now as well.
Get back to rock and roll. And Jeff was saying, I guess Richie just lives down the street from him, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, they hang a lot.
That's awesome.
And two great voices like that.
I know, right? So. Imagine, yeah, that'd be something else. Well, I asked Jeff this question, and this is pretty cool because, I mean, you guys, when the announcement was made before, it was like just on paper, with Sons of Apollo, you look at these guys on paper, you know, and I've had all you guys over on the last show, which was a lot of fun, trying to prove who was the biggest Van Halen fan. And I even said this to Jeff on Friday, we gave you the unofficial trophy. So I'm going to make you a plaque and get it to you eventually, that you're the world's biggest Van Halen fan. But I asked him, you know, regardless of you as a player and Jeff as a singer, you as a bass player, how is the band, would you say now, Sons of Apollo, grown that you've had a record, a very successful tour, a start of another tour, and a new record? How would you say you've grown together as a unit?
Well, very typically, once a band gets out and you get on a tour bus together and you're backstage together and you're flying together and you're traveling together all the time, things work themselves out. It can be catastrophic.
Yep.
A couple people don't get along, or whatever, for whatever reason, or it can be, you can tolerate the other people, or sometimes you can actually enjoy what's going on, and that's the ideal situation. And as far as public relations goes, you should always say, oh yeah, we get along great, and it's fantastic and everything, when in fact it isn't. But in actual fact, and anybody that comes backstage and hangs out sees, we do all get along very well. You know, there'll be a bump in the road occasionally.
Sure.
It's because it's so much like a relationship that the dynamic's very much like the relationship between a man and a woman, oddly.
Yeah.
How that works itself out. But the relationship to your other band members and as a group is very similar things. So you'll have bumps in the road, and I have with every band I've ever been in. But we got quite a machine going there now. Mike Portnoy is he's a workaholic.
He sure
does everything.
Yeah.
So he did the cover art and the live Plovdiv thing. He was in on the editing and the packaging, and the book looks amazing, and the whole presentation was fantastic. It was all him.
Wow.
Fantastic. Because that gives me a lot of free time. If I don't have to do that too. Thanks, Mike. That's cool. But it actually it does work out really well. Like I said, Jeff as a lead singer is just so easy, and no real prima donna situation. Mm-hmm. Derek as a keyboard player is a very guitar minded.
Sure is.
So it kind of works its way in there in a kind of a cool way. Ron Bumblefoot is his genius. I mean, it reminds me a lot of Tony McAlpine, and Tony was the type of guy you could just play like
yes.
A flat.
Yeah.
And you check him. It is an A flat. How the hell did you know that? Ron is like that too. You know, he's got amazing ears and chord voicings, and he hears things. He hears things wrong that we don't hear.
Yeah, sure.
You're playing like you go, hold on a second. That's really. Oh, yeah, he's right. Yeah, you know, he's just great to have around. And he sings his ass off too. He's amazing. Mike sings great, plays amazingly, does all the more work than any other human should do. And I'm in the mix there somewhere too, doing my thing. So it's worked out really, really well. We're very pleased with it. And I'm very lucky. I got Sons of Apollo, Winery Dogs. I don't know if Mr. Big will do anything at all, but we're all leaving the possibility open. I love those guys very much, and we have opportunity there too. So I'm very, very fortunate. And you know, I say this often, and I mean it. Everything I have comes from somebody buying a T-shirt, a ticket, or a CD, or something,
mm-hmm.
and I never forget that. And so I'm always grateful that I have the possibility that I can play. I can go out and do a live show. There'll be people there. They'll pay to get in. it couldn't be any better than that. I'm very, 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 very grateful to those people that come to our shows, and all of us here on this watching. We're all in that position. We do what we do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
It's a joy, but thank goodness people enjoy it, and we see now that none of us are working.
Yeah.
Hopefully your savings will hold you through this.
Yeah, for sure.
And I feel for a lot of people in this situation, but man, all that savings came from somebody buying a T-shirt or a ticket or a CD somewhere. So we should all be very grateful to the people that come see us play. It's an amazing thing. And it's coming back. We'll be back. We'll all be back.
Jeff said the exact same thing too. That's why he likes doing some of the live broadcasts on his Facebook page and stuff like that. He says, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't from you guys and girls. And it was really cute. We had a young audience member ask us something on the show on Friday, and I think it was possibly over in Spain. I forget forgive me where it was, one of the last tours, and possibly maybe just before this tour ended. But a young fan had said, I met you there and I was wearing a Greta Van Fleet shirt. Do you remember me? And Jeff remembered the person very, very well. And that's pretty cool just to zero in on fans and just recognize them for what they are, because you're still here because of them. And it's nice that you take your time to connect with us, whether it be meet and greets or in a case like this, a virtual, a little show, which is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I remember back in the days, we used to play a place in Buffalo called the Barrelhead on Tallis Tuesdays. First time we played, there was like 10 people there. Then within a year, it was the biggest night of the week of any bar in town. And there was no dressing room. So you get done, and the stage is about 2 feet high.
Yeah.
Step off the stage and into the crowd and hang with everybody until you looked up to the clock and it was time to go on again, and you get up and play again. So from the very early days, it was kind of cool that there wasn't this huge chasm between us and the people that were coming to see us play.
Yeah.
And that was so valuable in so many ways, because we instantly had our thumb on the pulse of what they liked, what they didn't like, what they were into, what they weren't. They had this new song by Robin Trower, Day of the Eagle. Yeah, we'd learn it. Next week, come back. All right, Day of the Eagle. And then, hey, you did that song. We were in touch. And so that club experience in that respect was a great training for being connected to an audience. And a lot of things, I have an oddball memory. I'll remember things that people, they think I'm lying.
Yeah.
About it. Matter of fact, I was at a NAMM show one time. Pardon me for these. I'll make it as short-winded as possible. It's a NAMM show one time. And a lot of people come up and say, hey, Billy, and I'm talking, and they walk away, and somebody goes, who was that? I go, I had no idea. I don't remember ever seeing it, but why not have a conversation?
Sure.
So it looks like I know them. So one guy came up to me, and I was with a group of friends who knew about this, and he's talking, and he goes, you remember my dad, right? And I go, yeah. And then one of the girls said, you don't remember. And I go, hold on a second. Doesn't your dad have the largest collection in North America of pre-Columbian burial urns?
Oh, my goodness.
He goes, yeah, that's my dad. Because I met his dad in Chicago at a Chicago NAMM show. And I went with Larry DiMarzio back to his house. And he had this huge wall of all these little jugs. And it was the largest collection in North America of pre-Columbian burial urns.
So there, take that.
I looked at it and said, see?
I told you.
I remember that. So it was pretty funny.
That is awesome. That's a great story. I just rub it in. I told you I knew what I was talking about.
See, I told you.
That's right. I'm glad you mentioned Mr. Big too, because Jimmy Biter had a question. He was just asking, actually he said, how did Mr. Big come to be, and what was it like working with Paul Gilbert?
Well, when I left Dave, Ted Templeman from Warner Brothers Record, he produced Van Halen records and just great, iconic, wonderful guy. He kind of took me under his wing. He kind of understood what happened with the Dave thing, and he wanted to help me out. So he initially got me together with Steve Stevens. And we were going to maybe do a band, but Steve was East Coast, I was West Coast. It didn't quite work out logistically, and amazing guitar player.
Love him.
I love Steve. And so then I told Ted, I found the singer, and he sent me his demo. We want to meet me for lunch, and I'll play it for you. So I met him at La Vallée. It was a little restaurant on Ventura Boulevard in Whitsett years ago. And I played him, and he thought, hey, this guy sounds pretty good. So it's going to be you and who on guitar? And I go, well, I got my eye on Paul Gilbert. His band Racer X is about to break up or fall apart. And so I was going to hit him up if he wanted to join me. And I didn't know of Pat yet, but I knew of him, but I hadn't really thought of him in a concrete way for the band yet. So sure enough, we had a meeting with Warner Brothers Records. We didn't get the deal for a very strange reason, which I'll go into later at some point. But that was the beginning of the band. So myself, Paul, and Eric. And then Paul had a drummer that he knew that he wanted to try out. But I had already seen Pat, and I said, Pat is the man.
You got to get him, yeah.
He's the guy. So I humored Paul. We tried out this other guy. He was okay, but then Pat came in. Me, Paul, and Pat, our first rehearsal together, and bang, it was great. So then Eric flew down. We started writing right away. And one of the reasons why I wanted Eric in the band, not only because he's a great songwriter, a great singer, but he was associated with a guy named Herbie Herbert, who was one of the biggest, most powerful managers in the biz. And sure enough, Herbie was responsible for getting our deal, making that song #1, getting the tours we got,
nice,
getting our foot in the door in Japan. And so it worked out really well. And on top of it, Eric was just one of the best singers ever. So it was, we were very lucky. But initially it was tough. Our first record went on. It didn't do too well.
Mm-hmm.
And but thanks to Herbie, he went and renegotiated our deal again, even though we didn't sell that many, and got us a superstar deal. So our second record came out, and as a result, we got way more royalties and money off that record than we ever would have normally, because of Herbie's business acumen and expertise and genius. And then right away he got us on the Rush tours and opened up, and so it was quite awesome. We all became very, very good friends, and the songwriting was fun and enjoyable, and it was a great band. So much so that the loss of any one guy, though Paul quit for a while, and we had Richie Kotz in the band. It was good, but it was, and I love Richie's playing. It just wasn't the same.
Yeah,
you know?
It's like taking Alex Lifeson out of Rush, or you just can't take one member out, and it's cool, but it's not going to be the same ever again.
Yeah, I love Richie's playing and his singing.
Yep,
amazing, and one of the most talented humans I've ever known. But it wasn't the same. So when Paul came back, that was cool. And then we started the thing with Richie Winery Dogs. That was cool too. But that was when we lost Pat, we knew the band really was never going to be the same again.
Yeah,
just because of that factor right there.
Yep.
And so we may go out again. Maybe just the three of us will go out. But we went out with Matt Starr. He did an amazing job. And,
he's great.
Wonderful guy. So we'll see what happens in the future. But thanks for asking.
No problem.
Pat,
that's a good question.
Pat is still remembered. I get an email from somebody almost every day that's reminiscing about Pat. It's pretty awesome.
I bet. I know. What a wonderful man. I know I don't need to tell you how good of a player that Paul Gilbert is, but I had some feedback from a couple other guests. I had John Cunaberti on the other show on Rock Shop Live, and obviously working lifetime working with Joe Satriani, engineer and producer, but he worked with Paul as well too. And he said the only time there were mistakes in the studio working with Paul is if someone else made a mistake. That's the only time Paul ever had to stop.
Paul is a dedicated musician. And he works hard he works hard. I remember Herbie Herbert came into our dressing room one time.
Mm-hmm.
We were opening for Rush, so we're in a arena, and we had a nice dressing room. And he tells the story. He says, I walked in the dressing room and stood there for 20 minutes, and nobody noticed me because Paul had his guitar on, I had my bass on, Pat had his head down on his little practice pad.
Yeah.
And he said, the three of you guys didn't even look up for 20 minutes. That's how dedicated you guys were.
Oh, wow.
And Paul exemplified that very much. Not only is he supremely intelligent, he's devoted his intelligence to a real understanding of music and his instrument and so much more that's related. He really is a music guy, top to bottom. And his playing is, I doubt there's anything he can't do.
I know.
At some point.
I know. I had the opportunity. I don't want to say it's a pleasure because it certainly wasn't a pleasure, but I had the opportunity to throw him off his game once. He was over. Because he's focused. He was over on when we used to be EVH and Gear TV. He was on the show for quite some time. And it was really cool. One of the things he was trying to teach fans was like, I want you all to be able to pick up a guitar and play a solo like you're playing a kazoo, because anyone can grab a kazoo and start humming a melody or whatever, right? And he wanted to convey that to people with guitar. But so as we're warming up and we weren't even on the air yet, he's using chalkboards behind him for teaching his students in his Skype lessons and stuff like that. And he was drawing a couple big Marshall stacks, and he literally drawing them as we're doing a warm up. And so he's like, okay, how's my level? Does that sound good? And at this point, he had half a Marshall drawn. And I said, no, bring up your mids on the chalkboard a little bit. He looks behind him. He goes, bring up my what on the what? And then he goes back. He was almost going to reach his mids on the chalkboard. And it just threw him off his game. It was really, really funny. But before we wrap up, we're just moments away from wrapping up. Here's a good question from our friend Scott Connor. And if we have time, I want to talk to you about home cuisine real quick, because a lot of people are looking for ideas for cooking. But Scott Connor says, are there any musicians that Billy would like to play with that he hasn't had the opportunity to do so yet?
Sadly, he passed away. I was a huge Paco de Lucia fan.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I have the ability to stand next to that genius, but man, he was so great. I saw him play with Al Di Meola and John McLaughlin, an acoustic trio. They did Trio of Doom, I think it was called. And wow, just amazing. I remember when I was on tour with UFO, driving through Spain, we stopped at a little gas station. They had a little Paco de Lucia. It's the first time I ever heard him.
Okay.
And I got the little cassette and put it on. I was just completely blown away. Sadly, he passed away. But I'm really lucky. I've played with Billy Gibbons.
Yeah.
I played with Dennis Chambers. I played with Ed Van Halen.
Yeah.
Played with Steve Lukather. Steve Vai, and so I there's a lot of sax players I like a lot.
Nice.
I don't know any current guys, though. The guy that plays with Victor Wooten, I forgot his name. Italian last name.
I wouldn't know either.
I saw Victor, Dennis, and this sax player. I apologize for spacing on his name. He's amazing. In Italy. Actually, Dennis was on the same flight. I was going over to visit my wife's parents, so we went out that night and watched him play. And Victor, of course, a genius beyond humanity.
Yeah.
And Dennis is the same. But the sax player, really, he brought tears to my eyes at one point. Just great player. So I listened to a lot of sax players when I was growing up. Eddie Harris, a big fan of Sonny Rollins, of course, Coltrane, and all the jazz bunch, Cannonball Adderley, people like that. So that was a big part of me. But again, I'm not a jazz guy.
Yeah.
So, I can kind of fake my way through it a little bit, but it's not necessarily what I do. And they know way more than I do about it. So I've been piecing my way through giant steps, just getting a little chunk of it here and there, just to see what it's like to think in that manner.
Yeah.
Quite astounding. The genius of Coltrane, mind blowing.
But the nice thing
not
is,
my thing.
No, exactly.
I would listen to Bad Company or Free or Rory Gallagher. That would be my thing on a Saturday night, or Debussy or some classical stuff. But once in a while, I put that on, and just, man, it's a whole other world. Genius, frightening.
It sure is. But the nice thing is, too, I mean, it's always nice to fantasize about who you'd like to jam with. But, I mean, you've had the opportunity to play with some of the world's greatest, so always be reflective and grateful for that. But
absolutely.
Just before we wrap...
A lot of it is drummers, too. For the most part, when I play, I listen to the drummer. So when I do that, it makes it the bass and drum thing is everything to me.
Oh yeah, of course.
Having played with Dennis Chambers, jammed with Steve Smith, Tommy Breckline, Greg Bissonette, Pat Torpey, Mike Portnoy. Come on. It's just been really very, very grateful to know any of those people, to play with them also. It's pretty cool.
Let's say this. Awesome. Let's say this as a respect, too, to the late, great Neil Peart.
Oh, man.
I mean, you played with them, right?
I did.
You did. Sound check. That was great.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And they were, I'll tell you, what a sweet bunch of people. The guys in Rush. I mean, people are such Rush fanatics. And I'm always hesitant to even say that I wasn't a Rush fan.
It's okay.
Only because there's only so many hours in the day, and I was into what I was into, and they were close by, and you kind of sometimes overlook what's around you, because we kind of heard of this band from Toronto, and they were also a local band before they broke.
Yep.
And so I kind of didn't pay much attention to them. Not because they're not great, but just you can't follow everybody.
That's right.
So when we did finally go on tour with them, I really gained a real respect for their awesomeness. And on top of that, they are the sweetest people and most giving, generous, nicest bunch. Amazing. They could have been complete pricks. Yeah. And I still would have loved them.
I bet.
They were just wonderful people. Really great to see.
Awesome. Here's a comment from Gary Thornler. Says Victor Wooten's sax player, and if I'm going to pronounce the name right, Bob Franciscini, if I'm saying that right.
Franciscini, yeah.
There you go. Okay. So just as we wrap up, I just want to ask you this, because I mean, I've been salivating over the food posts you've been sharing, because a lot of us are looking for different ideas. And actually because of you, Sandra Lee, she's just taken off right now. She's saying goodnight to everybody, and she's going to go making pizza dough herself from hand. She's an artist in the kitchen, really. I mean, I'm getting fatter all the time in a good way. But do you share the cooking at home? Are you the main cook? But where do you get all these ideas for these great meals?
Well, thanks very much. I grew up, my mom was a great cook. She was a seat of the pants, a little bit of this, a little of that. So sometimes I'd ask her to write down a recipe, and she'd write it down at different times, and each time it was different. The recipe for some of her Christmas cookies, we try to match them up and average out the 3 versions of it. So she was a great cook, and I just learned from her when I was a kid, helping her out in the kitchen. And it's a lot of parallels to playing. You bring different things together to create something new. But when Thanksgiving comes, I do the full-on turkey with the gravy and make cranberry sauce from scratch from the actual bag of cranberries.
Mm-hmm.
Easy to do. And most all of it is so easy. And it's also incredibly cheap, and it's better for you.
Yes.
So 1, 2, 3, that's you kind of can't miss. So my wife does. She has her specialty. She has a chicken cotoletta, which is a thin cut chicken fillet, breaded and fried with cherry tomatoes and basil. Very, very nice, very nice. And her salads are mind blowing. And she does a great stew and a couple of other things too. But I do the adventurous. I do a great curry. And she can hang with some of the heat I eat, so that helps. So I can make it nice and spicy. And last night I did a ground beef with bell peppers and onion, and then used jarred spaghetti sauce.
Okay.
In that, and that goes over pasta, really nice. One of my specialties, pork chops. Whichever way you want to do them, broiled in the oven is generally what we do. But when we first had them, I noticed we didn't have applesauce in the house in LA. And I said to my wife, "Oh man, you got to try pork chops with applesauce. It's an American thing."
You have to. Canadian too. Canadian too.
Exactly. So I had a couple Granny Smith apples. I cored them, diced them, put them in a frying pan with butter, sauteed them, and then I added maple syrup and the Christmas spices, cinnamon, oregano, clove.
Oh, wow.
And made this gelatinous mass of deliciosity that got poured over the pork chop. Man, so that turned out so good. I had a friend visit me. I forgot she was a vegetarian.
Oh,
she
no.
came with her daughter. So it was the 4 of us, my wife, her, and her daughter, and I got 4 pork chops. And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot. Let me run back to the store. I'm going to get a portobello mushroom." And
Sure.
She goes, no. She goes, I'll try it. So you're a vegetarian.
Yeah.
Pork chop with my applesauce on it. So she loved it. And
Nice.
I didn't think much more about it. Again, I just thought, man, I hope it didn't cause a problem. A couple days go by, and I get a phone call. It goes, "So how do you cook a pork chop?"
Nice.
So I helped convert her back to a carnivore.
I love that idea of the applesauce because it would be almost like caramelized. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well,
that's what's good.
I've been blessed
And the maple
here.
syrup is the sweetener. I use that a lot. Even when I do the cranberry sauce, just put the cranberries in water and boil them until they start popping. But I use maple syrup for the sweetener because you get that maple.
Nice.
It's more complex than a regular sugar. It's very nice.
I've been very blessed here. I'll just mention this as we wrap up because my better half, Sandra, a couple of years back, she was diagnosed with diabetic neuropathy. So she had diabetes and neuropathy, which is like the way I describe it to people is almost like you have shorting out electricity in your house. One day you have a light on over here, and one day that light's out, and then all of a sudden there's a spike. So she was prescribed all this medication, and we're not these people that like to take, big pharma pills and things like that. So she found an alternative, and she went to a whole food plant-based diet. And oh my God, there's some good foods in what she makes. Now, it's harder to find these foods, especially in a small town Ontario where we live. We have to really search to get the things. But, she creates everything from scratch. She made a soup the other day that, I don't want to be a glutton and a pig right now during these times. I like to try and space my meals out. But she made a beautiful soup with zucchinis, quinoa, vegetable broth, tomatoes, red peppers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I started with 1 bowl, and I like crackers in my soup, but the quinoa made me feel like I was having some cracker substance. I had a second bowl. I had about 4 bowls, and then I was like, oh, I'm a pig. And I put the rest in the fridge and warmed it up the next day. But it's long story short, it's great to see people, trying different things. And I know a lot of people right now are probably starving, so we should probably let them get off to their dinners. But Billy, thank you once again. You've been one of the most gracious guests
Eric,
we've ever had.
Absolutely my pleasure. And thank everyone that was here with us today. I'm wishing you all the best. Hang in there. This will be over soon. Stay healthy. Wash your hands. You heard it a million times already, but I know we have a great community of musicians together. This is a great part of it, and wishing everybody the absolute best to get this over with soon, and we all get back to work.
That's right. Exactly. Back to normal. Well, listen, I'll say goodbye to you off the air. Everyone be safe. Tune in again next Friday evening at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I have guitarist Orianthi on the show. And over on the Helix Hour on Sunday, I have Alex Strabla on the show. So come back and have a look there as well, too. Everyone have a safe, and I guess it's not a weekends carry into the week. Just be safe out there. Enjoy your family time, and look at Billy's Facebook page. We got a million links in our description down below to all of Billy's properties. Watch his Facebook and salivate over the food posts. We'll see you next time. And until then,
take care.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Hey, you're still here? Eric Jr. here, reminding you to check out our full lineup of quality merch. Available right now in the Broadstash Boutique. Quality products and fast shipping. Visit broadstash.com today.
Thank you for watching the Helix Hour. We hope you enjoyed today's presentation. An extra special thank you to the staff at Line 6 for their continued support. If you've not yet subscribed, please do so right now, and feel free to share our content with your friends. See you next time on the Helix Hour.